Hello everyone, and welcome back to our Ansible course. We are now on Lab 7, and in this video we are going to go over Ansible variables. So Ansible has two main types of variables. There are user-created ones, and then there are Ansible facts. So if you recall, when we ran our playbooks in previous videos, one of the first things that it always did was collect the Ansible facts on the nodes, and that is Ansible going out and collecting attributes about the system. So let's hop into the command line here and start collecting facts. So I'm in the command line, and I'm going to clear the screen, and I'm going to run a command here, and that's going to be Ansible -i hosts, and I want to specify the proxy group because I just want the facts on the proxy server, and I want to do -m setup. And if I run this, I'm going to see a lot of output here, too much to read, so let's rerun this, but let's output this to a file, and I'll just call it Ansible_facts.json, since it's a JSON. It comes in JSON format, so we want our code editor to read it properly. So let's hop into the code editor and look at that file that we just created, and we can see that it collected from the proxy group. It found the load balancer node, and it successfully collected the facts. And underneath the Ansible facts, we have a whole lot of information in regards to the system. So we have this fact here, which has all the IP addresses of the system. We have the IP6 information. AppArmor is enabled. The architecture. It knows that it's a VirtualBox machine, the boot image. Basically anything that you need to learn about the environment, Ansible is able to collect it. So that's a lot of information. Let's see if we can put it to use. So let's hop over to one of our configuration files. Let's go into the roles, Nginx, and let's have a look at our template here. And it'll be my site template. And I think we can make use of that fact here. So let's add something to the top. Let's put a comment, and then we'll go : Ansible facts node name. And say this configuration is for this node name. So it won't actually affect our configuration. It's just adding a comment, and we expect the load balancer name to be here. So that looks good to me. Let's go ahead and run a play. So I am running my playbook that I always run. Let's change the task to configuration. Sorry, let's change the tag to configuration. Vagrant for the password. I'm just going to run the configuration items. And you can notice the change in load balancer. It looks like it changed it. And that looks good to me. Let's see if we can SSH into the load balancer now, because I want to have a look at that file. I don't know where that file is. Let me find the location. So configure Nginx. Okay, this is where the file's ending up. So let's cat that out. And need to copy the entire thing. And we can see at the top of the file this configuration is for load balancer. So we added a nice comment in there that has the host name of the device. So that looks perfect to me. Alright, so back into my template here. We can make this a lot more dynamic. If I were to change this to Web01 and this to Web02, this would work if I had name resolution. But I don't have name resolution right now, because if I go, if I try to ping Web01 or Web02, it's not working because it's not in the host file. So let's push out a host file, and since this is an Ansible course, so let's push out a new host file, and since this is an Ansible course, let's do it through Ansible. So I think the common role would be the best place for a task like this. So let's hop on over to the common folder, and let's build a template for the host file. Now you could do just like a regular file, or you could do a template, but I want to do a template just because if we wanted to make changes and dynamically create a host file, using a template's a lot better than just having a static file that you have to update all the time. But this looks good, and I already have my host file on my clipboard, so I'm just going to paste that over. You can grab this from the GitHub or from your current host file that you have for on the Ansible control station, since we copied that over in our first lab. But now we have this. So we have the template. Now we want to push it out. So in our main task under common, we only install tools. Let's add another item here, and we'll say system configuration.yaml. And now let's create this file. And in the system configuration file that we just created, let's do a new task of copying the host file. So we'll say name, copy host file, template, and let's just do it inline. We'll say source equal host.j2 and destination equals etc/hosts, because that's where we want it to be copied to on the nodes. And then let's give it a tag and just say always run. And that's saved. Let's hop back into our command line. The host file copied out to everything. Now if we try to ping, pinging works. Now we can get started on that configuration file, the my site configuration file for Nginx. And now something like this will work, but instead of statically putting it in there, let's start using variables. So I want to dynamically put Web01 and Web02. Let's start simple, and we'll do something similar to the Ansible facts node name attribute, but we want to grab it from a different host. So we want to do host vars, and then we want the host name. So I'm just going to statically put Web01. I'll show you how to dynamically change this name after, but Web01 will work now. And then we want to say Ansible facts in quotes. And then, well, let's put our curly braces here just so we get the color coding. And then we want node name. Okay. If we copy this, and paste, and change this to 2. So this is going to say Web01, this one's going to say Web02, and then we want to add the start, which is that. The start of the string is server, space, and then there's a colon, 8,000, and then a semicolon. Let's do that for both. Now it's going to be the exact same as this. Let's comment this one out. Let's see if our dynamically created template will look similar to this. So it's saved. Let's rerun the play. Make sure we're in the right host here. So I'm on Ansible control. Change my tag to configuration. And we should see a change once we get to the load balancer. Okay, so it deployed that new configuration. If I read the configuration file, we can see the statically assigned one I commented out. But here's our dynamic one. So that looks good to me. And if I hop back onto Ansible control, if I do curl load balancer, yep, everything is still working. So that looks good. Now let's hop back into the code editor once more and have a look at this. So it's kind of silly to statically set the variables like this, right? It would be easier to do this. But now we can make this a little more complex by turning this into a loop. So I'm going to remove this line since we're going to be using a loop now. And I'm going to start a loop. So it's one curly bracket, %, one curly bracket for a loop. And within those, we'll say for host, and host is going to be our variable. And we're going to say in groups, web servers. And then I'm going to indent this. And then to end the loop, I'm going to do curly brackets, %, and end for. Now, to explain this a bit further, this groups variable will have all the groups in your inventory file. So if you look here, it'll have control, it'll have proxy, it'll have web servers, right? So it's looking for the web servers group. So it's going to have two items in there. It's got web01 and web02. And it's saying we're naming that variable host, right? So it's saying for host in groups web servers. The first host will be web01. The second host will be web02. Now we can change this. Instead of statically specifying the host, we can say host, right? Because this is reading this up here, and now it should dynamically create it for both. So that looks good. So let's rerun our play. And it did not like what we did. So let's see what went wrong. And let's just have a look at this before we rerun our play. Okay, we have an extra curly bracket here, so let's remove that. In the loops, we only have one curly bracket and then a %. So let's hop back in, rerun this. Okay, our play is running. It changed. It restarted Nginx. If we look at our configuration, everything still looks good. So this was dynamically created with the loop. Alright, so now that we've done a little bit with the Ansible facts, let's work on the user created variables. And we have 3 that we're using already under the web servers play. Let's make these a little more dynamic and move them to their own configuration file. So I'm going to start by creating a new folder here. So underneath my lab directory, I'm going to go new folder, and I'm going to call it group vars. And if you're following along, make sure you do use the same naming scheme that I'm using here. So I'm naming this one group vars, and underneath that folder, I'm going to create another folder called all. And basically this means every single group, so web servers is a group, proxy is a group, every one of them, they're going to get these variables. So I'm going to do a new file, and you can call it whatever you want, but I'll call it common variables.yml. And whatever you name it, it doesn't matter as long as this folder structure is correct, which is group vars and then all. So we have that. Now let's copy and paste these variables right here. And that looks good to me. So now HTTP port is going to be set for everyone, HTTPS port, and the welcome message. So any node in any of the groups will be able to access those. And this is great if you want to set other things, like you could do like an NTP server, and you would want to spell NTP correctly if you did that, and then do something like this, right? And have a default NTP server. Then you could run a play in or a task in one of your plays to set that NTP server. And then maybe you want to do like a DNS server, primary, DNS server, secondary, and then let's just use Google DNS. So that's quad 8, and then for the secondary it's 4.4. But you can see how valuable this is, right? You can set global parameters and set everything. And then you can also do something like this. Create another folder and then call it host vars. And then underneath that folder, create a new file, and then have the file name the same as one of your servers. So let's do web01.yaml, and let's grab this variable, which is a global variable in the group vars, and let's paste it here. And instead of saying hello world for the welcome message, let's say I'm special, because host01 is special. And that's how you set a variable local to the host. And yeah, it will take precedence over group declared variables, and we will see that. So now that we have these variables set, let's go to our playbook and remove this, since we don't need it anymore. The variables are already set from the folder. And you can see how much cleaner our playbook looks from removing those variables. And now that we got a cleaner playbook, let's go into the templates and start making use of those variables. So I want to grab this HTTP port one. Now let's go into our roles, Nginx, and then the My Site template, and let's, instead of specifying this 8000, let's set it like this. There we go. And now that HTTP port will be set. So we have that. What other variables did we set? We did the hello world. Let's go into our Apache role. And I want to go into the templates. We got the welcome message there. But let's make use of, sorry for jumping around all the place. I want to make use of this, so in our index, we'll have the hello world, and then we'll let them know which web server you're connected to. So it'd say, I'm web server, and then let's do the curly brackets for our Jinja templating. There. So now it'll do the hello world message, and it'll let you know which web server you're connected to, since we're going to connect through the load balancer. And this message will be special when you hit web server 01. Alright, so I think that's everything we need. Let's go hop in to our terminal and run a play. I'm just going to run everything, since I can't remember all the stuff that I did, but I think it was just configuration items that are going to change here. And failed. HTTP port is undefined. Hey, I'm back. I paused the recording and rerun the play, and everything ran fine. We can see that it rewrote that index file and everything. All I did for changes was I deleted this group vars folder and I recreated the whole folder structure. I'm not sure if I had a typo in there or what, but whatever I did seemed to correct it. I'll leave it up to the YouTube detectives to go through and look at my video and see what was the mistake I made. But having a look now, everything's working fine, and I think this is what I had. I had group underscore vars, and then all, a folder named all underneath there, and then common variables.yaml, and then some settings in there. So it should all be working. Anyways, the play ran. Now when I do curl load balancer, we can see hello world, I'm web server web 01. I'm not sure if that's what I was expecting. Again, so hello world, I'm web server 02. I'm expecting to see that I'm special message, and I'm not seeing it. And I think this is why. I think that must have been my issue. So yeah, I think I named the folder wrong. Maybe I did group vars or groups vars instead of group vars. I definitely named this one wrong. So let's fix that. All right, so that's fixed, and that's some good troubleshooting for all of us here. All right, so I think now if I rerun the play, it's going to pick up that host variable, and it'll inherit it properly, and it should say I'm special. Now, I made a change on web 01, so it definitely noticed that new variable. So now when I curl load balancer, there we go. I'm special. I'm web server web 01. There. So, yeah. The naming of this folder structure is very important. Make sure to call it host vars and group vars. Don't put an S in there, because that's the mistake I made. But we're able to find that, troubleshoot, and get through it, so that's good. I think that's all I want to show you guys today in regards to variables. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe if you'd like to. I hope to see you in the next video, where I'll show you where you can separate a development and production environment.